widowed janitor father was mopping the floor until he spoke Dutch to the owner and impressed everyone. Michael Anderson Wright was cleaning the Italian marble floors of the luxurious Grand Harbor Hotel when he heard desperate shouts coming from the front desk. The new owner, a young businesswoman of just 28, was frantically gesturing on the phone while speaking to someone on the other end in a language he recognized immediately. It was Dutch, and by the panic on the young woman's face, something very serious was happening. No, you don't understand," she shouted in English into the phone. "I need to speak to Mr. Vandermeer right now. It's about the hotel sale." Michael stopped mopping and watched the scene. The young owner, whom everyone called Ms. Victoria, was visibly nervous. She had inherited the hotel from her grandfather just 3 months ago and was still adjusting to the responsibility of managing such a large business. "Didn't the interpreter come?" asked the receptionist, an older woman named Margaret. "But this meeting is crucial to finalize the partnership with the Dutch group." Victoria hung up the phone and leaned on the counter, taking a deep breath. Michael knew that look. It was the same one he had when the doctors told him there was nothing more they could do for his wife, Rebecca. The look of someone who feels the ground crumbling beneath them. "Mr. Vandermeer only speaks Dutch," Victoria murmured to Margaret. "And the interpreter had an emergency. If I don't close this deal today, I'll lose the chance to save the hotel from bankruptcy." Michael hesitated for a moment. He had worked as a janitor at that hotel for 15 years. 15 years of going unnoticed, invisible like the dust he cleaned daily. But this time, something inside him refused to stay silent. "Excuse me, Ms. Victoria," he said, approaching the counter with the cleaning bucket still in hand. She looked up, surprised. Michael rarely spoke to her, usually just greeting her politely when she passed through the halls. "What is it, Michael?" she asked, trying to hide the irritation in her voice. I overheard your conversation. If you need someone to translate from Dutch, I can help." The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret's eyes widened, and Victoria stood still for a few seconds, processing what she had just heard. "You speak Dutch?" Victoria asked, incredulous. "Yes, ma'am, fluently." Victoria exchanged a glance with Margaret as if waiting for someone to tell her this was a prank. A janitor who spoke Dutch. It seemed impossible. "Are you sure?" Victoria pressed. "This is a very important negotiation. I can't afford to..." "Ik spreek vloeiend Nederlands, mevrouw. Ik kan u helpen met de onderhandelingen," Michael said in perfect Dutch, with a pronunciation that left Victoria speechless. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The reaction was immediate. Victoria straightened up, her eyes shining with a mix of surprise and hope. Margaret crossed herself, muttered a "good Lord," and stared at Michael as if he had just performed a miracle. How did you learn Dutch?" Victoria asked, still processing the situation. Michael looked away, embarrassment washing over his face. For 15 years he had kept his past a secret. No one at the hotel knew who he really was before putting on that grey uniform and picking up a mop. "I learned it a long time ago, Miss Victoria," he replied, avoiding details. "What matters now is helping you with this call." Victoria hesitated. The situation was too unusual. How could she trust a janitor with a negotiation that could determine the hotel's future? But desperation spoke louder than reason. "All right," she said, taking a deep breath. "But if anything goes wrong..." "It won't, Miss Victoria, trust me." Victoria picked up the phone and dialed again. When the call connected, she handed the phone to Michael. The transformation was astonishing. The humble man who had been mopping the floor just moments ago vanished, replaced by someone with upright posture, a firm voice, and an eloquence that left everyone speechless. "Goedemiddag, meneer Vandermeer. Mijn naam is Michael Anderson Wright en ik ben de tolk voor mevrouw Victoria Montgomery, eigenaar van the Grand Harbor Hotel," Michael said into the phone with such ease that Victoria swallowed hard. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Michael translated every word with surgical precision, switching between Portuguese and Dutch with a fluency that impressed with every sentence. Victoria watched, fascinated, as this man she saw every day cleaning the halls demonstrated a command of the language that rivaled any professional translator. During the negotiation, Michael didn't just translate. He also suggested adjustments to Victoria's approach, whispering in Portuguese, "He's interested but wants guarantees about retaining the staff," or "Now's the time to mention the expansion plans for South Beach." When Victoria finally hung up, she was radiant. The deal was sealed. The Dutch group would invest in the hotel, ensuring not just its survival, but also its modernization and expansion. "Michael, I don't know how to thank you," she said, still in shock. "You saved the hotel. You saved all our jobs." Michael simply nodded and prepared to return to work, but Victoria stopped him. "Wait. I need to know how you learned Dutch, and why you never mentioned it before." Embarrassment returned to Michael's face. He looked around and noticed several employees had gathered, curious about the commotion. Among them were George, the maintenance supervisor, who always treated him with disdain, and Barbara, the cleaning supervisor, who constantly criticized him for being too slow. "It's a long story, Miss Victoria," Michael murmured, "and not very important." "How is it not important?" Victoria insisted. "A man with your talent shouldn't be—" She stopped mid-sentence, realizing her words might sound offensive, but Michael understood what she meant. "Shouldn't be mopping floors," he finished with a sad smile. "Life sometimes takes us down paths we don't expect, Miss Victoria." Victoria felt a pang in her chest. There was something in Michael's voice, a deep pain she recognized. It was the same pain she felt when she thought about her grandfather, who had built the hotel with his own hands and always dreamed of seeing her run the family business. "Michael, I'd like to promote you immediately," she said firmly. "You could be our international relations coordinator. The salary would be much better and—" "Thank you, Ms. Victoria, but I can't accept," Michael interrupted, shaking his head. "What do you mean you can't accept?" Victoria asked, bewildered. "I need the flexible hours of the cleaning shift. I have a teenage daughter to take care of, and she needs me at home when she gets back from school." The answer left Victoria even more intrigued. A man who spoke Dutch fluently, who demonstrated knowledge of international negotiations, and who turned down a promotion to care for his daughter. There was definitely more to this story than Michael was willing to share. "How old is your daughter?" she asked, trying a more personal approach. 15, Michael replied, and for the first time, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Her name is Emily. She's a very smart girl." "And her mother?" The smile vanished from Michael's face, as if someone had blown out a candle. "My wife passed away 3 years ago," he said, his voice choked. Victoria felt a lump in her throat. Now she understood why Michael had turned down the promotion. He was a single father, trying his best to balance work and family. "I'm so sorry," she said sincerely. "That must have been very hard." Michael simply nodded, unable to speak about it. The memories of Rebecca were still an open wound in his heart. George, who had been observing the entire conversation, stepped forward with a skeptical expression. "Forgive the intrusion, Miss Victoria, but doesn't all this seem a little strange?" he said, casting a suspicious glance at Michael. 15 years working here and suddenly we find out Michael speaks Dutch. How do we know he's not making something up? Michael felt his blood boil. George always found ways to humiliate him, questioning his competence and making cruel remarks about his being a widower. But this time, he said nothing. He simply held the man's gaze with a quiet dignity that made George take a step back. "George, you heard the conversation," Victoria said coldly. "Michael just saved this hotel. I suggest you show a little more respect." "Of course, Miss Victoria. I was only thinking of protecting the hotel's interests," George muttered, clearly displeased. Victoria turned back to Michael. "If you don't want the promotion, at least accept a raise. What you did today is worth far more than—" "Miss Victoria, with all due respect, I didn't do this for money," Michael interrupted. "I did it because I believe in this place. This hotel gave me a job when I needed it most. This is my way of giving back." Michael's words touched Victoria deeply. She thought of her grandfather, who always said a business only thrives when people genuinely care about it. "At least let me do something for you," she insisted. "You have a talent that's being wasted." "It's not being wasted, Miss Victoria. I'm using my talents to raise my daughter the best way I can, and that, to me, is worth more than any position or salary." Victoria fell silent for a moment, struck by the wisdom and humility of this man. She had been raised in a wealthy family, always had everything she wanted, but she had never met someone with such nobility of character. In the days that followed, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Michael. She began watching him more closely during her rounds through the hotel. She noticed how he treated every guest with the same respect, regardless of their nationality or social status. She saw how other staff turned to him when they had questions about procedures, and how he always found time to help, even when he was busy. One afternoon, Victoria was in the lobby when a pair of French guests approached the front desk, clearly frustrated. Margaret was trying to assist them, but the language barrier was causing a misunderstanding. "Ils ne comprennent pas ce que nous voulons dire," the Frenchman said, exasperated. Michael, who was passing by with his cleaning cart, discreetly stopped and approached. "Excusez-moi, monsieur, madame. Puis-je vous aider?" he said in perfect French. The couple turned, surprised, and began explaining their issue. Michael translated everything for Margaret and quickly resolved the situation. The French guests thanked him profusely before heading to the elevator. Victoria, who had observed everything from a distance, was even more astonished. Michael didn't just speak Dutch, he spoke French too, and from what she could tell, just as fluently. Later that week, the same thing happened with a group of German tourists. Michael intervened again, this time speaking German, and resolved a problem that could have resulted in a formal complaint against the hotel. Victoria couldn't take it anymore. On Friday, at the end of her shift, she approached Michael in the employee locker room. "Michael, I need to talk to you in private." They went to Victoria's office, an elegant space overlooking Miami Beach. Michael had never been there before and felt uncomfortable with all that luxury. "Have a seat, please," said Victoria, pointing to a leather armchair. Michael hesitated, glancing at his work uniform. "It's fine. Go ahead," she insisted. "Ms. Victoria, if this is about those German tourists, I was just trying to help. I didn't mean to interfere with the front desk's work." "It's not about that," Victoria interrupted, "though I was impressed by your German too, and your French. Michael, how many languages do you speak?" Michael sighed, realizing there was no avoiding this conversation. "A few," he replied evasively. "A few isn't an answer. I want the truth. Who are you, really?" Silence stretched for several minutes. Michael looked out the window, watching the waves break on the golden sand of the beach. Finally, he turned to Victoria. "Ms. Victoria, some stories are better left in the past." "Not this one," Victoria said firmly. "Michael, a man with your talents shouldn't be cleaning bathrooms. And don't tell me there's nothing wrong with that, because there is. It's deeply wrong when someone with your abilities can't use their gifts to improve their life and their daughters." Michael felt a sharp pang in his chest. Those words echoed thoughts he had every day but refused to admit. "Life isn't fair, Miss Victoria," he said, his voice weary. "Sometimes it doesn't matter what you know or what you can do. Sometimes you just do what you must to survive." "But why?" Victoria pressed. "What happened that brought you here?" Michael took a deep breath. Maybe it was time to tell someone the truth. He'd carried that weight alone for 3 years. "I was a professor," he said at last. "A linguistics professor at NYU. I had a doctorate in Romance philology and spoke 8 languages fluently." Victoria's eyes widened. 8 languages. And there he was, using that knowledge to help lost tourists in a hotel lobby. "What happened?" she asked softly. "My wife Rebecca found out she was sick. Cancer." The word came out as a painful whisper. "The treatments were expensive, very expensive. Insurance didn't cover everything, and we didn't have enough savings." Michael paused, fighting back tears. "We sold everything, the apartment, the car, even my books. I took out loans, went into debt. But it wasn't enough. In the end, she left us anyway." Victoria felt her eyes well up. Now she understood the sacrifice this man had made. "When Rebecca passed, I was completely broken, financially and emotionally. I had a 12-year-old daughter to raise, huge debts to pay, and I could barely get out of bed. That's when your grandfather offered me this job." "My grandfather?" Victoria asked, surprised. "Your grandfather, Mr. Montgomery, was a very special man. He knew about my situation and sought me out. He said there would always be a place for me in this hotel. No questions asked, no judgments. Just an honest man trying to rebuild his life. Victoria felt a tightness in her chest. That was exactly the kind of gesture she'd expect from her grandfather. He'd always had a generous heart and a keen eye for those in need. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Why did you never tell me this? Asked Victoria. Because I didn't want to be treated differently, replied Michael. Your grandfather gave me a chance to start over without anyone knowing my past. I didn't want pity. I just wanted to work, support my daughter and pay off my debts. And did you manage? I haven't finished paying everything yet, but I'm close. And Emily is growing up well. She's a strong, smart girl. She'll take her college entrance exams next year. For what program? Michael smiled, and for the first time, Victoria saw genuine pride in his eyes. Medicine. She's wanted to be a doctor since she was little. Says she wants to help people the way doctors tried to help her mother. Does she know about your academic past? Michael's smile faded slightly. She does. And sometimes I worry she might be ashamed of me. A brilliant girl like her, with a father who cleans bathrooms. Michael, Victoria said firmly, look at me. He raised his eyes, surprised by the authority in her voice. Your daughter has no reason to be ashamed of you. What you've done, the sacrifice you're making, that's heroism, true heroism. I'm no hero, Ms. Victoria. Just a father doing what any father would. Exactly, and that's what makes you a hero. The silence that followed was more comfortable. Victoria had found the missing pieces to the puzzle that was Michael Anderson. And Michael, for the first time in 3 years, had shared his burden with someone. Michael, I want to make you an offer, said Victoria. Not a promotion, but something different. What do you have in mind? Our hotel hosts many international guests, tourists, business people, diplomats. Sometimes we have communication issues that could be avoided if we had someone with your talents available. How would you feel if I created a position for you? Something like International Relations Assistant? Michael shook his head. Ms. Victoria, I've told you I need flexible hours. Hear the full proposal, Victoria interrupted. The position would be part-time. You'd work from 2 to 6 p.m. weekdays. You'd be responsible for assisting international guests, handling translations when needed, and maybe teaching some Portuguese classes for staff who want to improve their service for tourists. Michael fell silent, processing the offer. The pay would be double what you earn now, Victoria continued, and you'd still have your mornings free to spend with your daughter. Why are you doing this? Michael asked, wary. I did a translation, nothing more than my duty. Because I believe the right people in the right place can make all the difference, and because my grandfather taught me that wasted talent is a sin against humanity. Michael stared at his hands, calloused from years of manual labor. The offer was tempting, but he'd learned to distrust deals that seemed too good to be true. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't come often. When Michael left Victoria's office, his mind was swirling with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, the offer represented everything he'd dreamed of since starting at the hotel. On the other, it meant stepping out of the comfort zone he'd built over the past 3 years. On his way home, he stopped at a newsstand and bought a copy of The Times. It was his daily ritual, reading the news on the bus to stay connected to the world he'd left behind. When he arrived at the small apartment in Miami Beach where he lived with Emily, he found his daughter studying at the kitchen table, surrounded by books and notebooks. Hi, Dad, she said without looking up from her books. How was work today? Interesting, replied Michael, sitting beside her. And you? How were your classes? Good. My biology teacher said if I keep this up, I have a real chance of getting into med school. Michael smiled, watching his daughter's focus. Emily had inherited her mother's intelligence and both parents' determination. She didn't yet know the emotional and financial cost her dream represented for him. Dad, can I ask you something? Emily finally looked up. Of course, sweetheart. Do you miss teaching? The question caught Michael off guard. Emily rarely brought up his academic past. Why do you ask? Because sometimes I see you reading your old books and you get this different look, like you're remembering something good. Michael sighed. His daughter was more observant than he'd realized. I do miss it, he admitted, but life changed and we adapt. What if an opportunity came up for you to use your knowledge again? Would you take it? Michael studied her, intrigued. Depends. Why? Because today, the bakery owner, Mrs. Wilson, asked if you'd be interested in tutoring her son in English. Apparently, he's struggling in school. Michael had nearly forgotten half the neighborhood knew about his academic past. Rebecca had been so proud of her professor husband and never hid it from the neighbors. What did you tell her? I said I'd ask you. Dad, I think it'd be good. For you and for us. That night, Michael lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Ms. Victoria's offer, Emily's question, it all seemed to conspire to pull him from the life he'd built over the past 3 years. The following Monday, Michael arrived at the hotel with a decision. He sought out Ms. Victoria as soon as she started her shift. Ms. Victoria, I've thought about your proposal. And what's your conclusion? I accept on one condition, which is, I want a 1-month trial period. If it doesn't work out, I return to maintenance with no hard feelings on either side. Ms. Victoria smiled. Done. When do you want to start? Today, if possible. Perfect. I'll have HR prepare your new paperwork. The change in Michael's life was immediate. Within hours, he swapped his grey janitor's uniform for dress clothes he hadn't worn in years. His first day as an international relations assistant felt surreal. Ms. Victoria had set up a small office on the 2nd floor, modest but with a beautiful view of the beach, equipped with a computer, phone and a small library of multilingual dictionaries. This is your new base, Ms. Victoria said, showing him around. Any issues with international guests will be directed to you. I'd also like you to prepare a basic English course for our front desk and housekeeping staff. Michael looked around, still in disbelief. 3 days ago, he'd been cleaning this very floor. Now, he had his own office. His first test came that evening. A group of Japanese businessmen arrived for an international tourism conference, and their hired translator failed to show, leaving chaos. Michael was called to resolve it. When he greeted the guests in fluent Japanese, their expressions of surprise and relief were heartwarming. For the next 3 hours, he assisted the group in a meeting with city government representatives, translating not just words, but also cultural nuances that could have led to misunderstandings. At the end of the meeting, the leader of the Japanese delegation approached Michael and bowed respectfully. Arigato gozaimashita, Anderson-san. Anata no okage de, kono kaigi wa daiseiko deshita, he said. Michael returned the bow and replied in Japanese, thanking him for the trust. Victoria, who had observed everything from a distance, approached after the Japanese delegation withdrew. What did he say? She asked. He thanked me and said that because of my help, the meeting was a great success. And how many languages do you speak again? Michael smiled, for the first time with a hint of pride. 8 fluently, 3 reasonably well. My goodness, murmured Victoria. I had a treasure working in housekeeping and didn't even know it. The news of Michael's transformation spread quickly through the hotel. Reactions were mixed. Some employees, like Margaret, were genuinely happy for him. Others, like George, showed barely concealed resentment. So now he's a doctor, huh? George remarked to a group of employees during the coffee break. Always knew there was something odd about him. An educated man doesn't take a job as a janitor unless he's hiding something. Barbara, the housekeeping supervisor, who had always treated Michael coldly, now tried to be overly friendly, which only made him more uncomfortable. I always said you were different from the others. She lied when she ran into him in the hallway. A cultured person like you wasn't born for manual labor. Michael hated the hypocrisy. He preferred the honesty of their previous disdain. But it wasn't just his co-workers' attitudes that were changing. Michael began noticing changes in himself too. Using his academic knowledge again had reignited a part of his personality he had buried along with Rebecca. A week after taking on his new role, Michael received an unexpected visit. Emily showed up at the hotel during her school hours, something she had never done before. "Dad, I need to talk to you," she said, clearly nervous. Michael took her to his small office, worried. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Why aren't you in school?" "Dad, can you be honest with me?" "I'm always honest with you." "It's about your job here. Yesterday, Kelly, Mrs. Wilson's daughter, told me you became a doctor at the hotel. Is it true?" Michael hesitated. He hadn't told Emily about the promotion, planning to surprise her when he got his first paycheck. "It's something like that," he replied carefully. "Dad, you don't understand," said Emily, tears welling up. "You don't have to lie to protect me. I know you're ashamed of working as a janitor because of me." "What?" Michael was genuinely shocked. "Emily, what are you talking about? You think I don't notice? You think I don't see how you react when your old university colleagues pass you on the street and pretend not to know you? You think I don't hear you crying in the bathroom when you think I'm asleep?" Emily's words hit Michael like punches to the gut. He had tried so hard to shield his daughter from his insecurities that he hadn't realized how much she was carrying. "Sweetheart? And now you made up this story about becoming a doctor, just so I wouldn't be ashamed of you. Dad, I've never been ashamed of you. Never." Emily was openly crying now, and Michael stood up to hug her. "Emily, listen to me," he said, holding her face in his hands. "I didn't make anything up. It's true I got a promotion. I'm now working as an international relations assistant." "You're lying to protect me again," she sobbed. Michael took out his new ID badge and showed it to his daughter. Then he opened the desk drawer and pulled out the employment contract signed a week earlier. "I'm not lying, sweetheart. Look." Emily read the documents, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Is this true?" she asked, incredulous. "It is. And do you know why? Because your mother always said hidden talents come to light sooner or later. It seems she was right." Emily hugged her father with all her strength, crying with relief and happiness. "Dad, I'm sorry I doubted you. You don't have to apologize for anything. In fact, I'm the one who should apologize." "Why?" "For not realizing how much you were suffering because of my situation. Emily, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. It doesn't matter if I work as a janitor, a teacher, or anything else. What matters is that we're a family, and family always supports each other. You should never, ever feel responsible for my happiness. But I want you to be happy, Dad. And I am happy, because I have you." Father and daughter stayed embraced for several minutes, releasing 3 years of pent-up pain and worry. When Emily finally pulled away, she asked, "Can I see your office?" Michael smiled and gave her a guided tour of the small room. Emily flipped through the dictionaries, tried out the chair, and looked out the window, admiring the view of the beach. "Dad, I'm proud of you," she said. "I always have been, but now I'm proud and happy." That afternoon, Michael worked with renewed energy. Knowing he wasn't disappointing his daughter had lifted a huge weight off his shoulders. Around 5 o'clock, Victoria appeared in his office. "How are things?" she asked. "Very well. Today I helped an Italian couple with a room issue, translated a menu for a French group, and started preparing materials for the staff's English lessons." "Excellent. By the way, I wanted to let you know that next week we'll be hosting a delegation of German businessmen. They'll be staying 5 days and have several meetings scheduled. Would you feel comfortable serving as their official translator?" "Of course. It would be my pleasure." "Great. Oh, and Michael?" "Yes?" "Your daughter is a lovely girl. I spoke with her in the elevator earlier. She seems very proud of her father." Michael smiled, feeling his chest warm. "She's the most precious thing I have in the world." "That's obvious. You're a devoted father." After Victoria left, Michael stood by the window thinking about how quickly life could change. A week earlier, he had been cleaning that same building. Now, he was responsible for welcoming international delegations. But the most important change wasn't professional, it was emotional. For the first time since Rebecca's departure, Michael felt like he was truly living again, not just surviving. The following days brought new challenges and opportunities. The German delegation arrived on Monday, consisting of 5 businessmen exploring investment opportunities in the American hotel industry. Michael greeted them at the airport, addressing each in German and introducing himself as their official translator during their stay in New York City. His fluency in the language and knowledge of the American economy immediately impressed the group. Over the next 5 days, Michael accompanied them to meetings with city officials, visits to other hotels, and tours of the city's main attractions. He didn't just translate. He also offered cultural insights that helped the Germans better understand the American market. On the last day of their visit, the delegation leader, a man named Hans Müller, asked to speak with Michael privately. "Mr. Anderson," Hans said in German, "we've been very impressed with your work this week. Your competence is exceptional." "Thank you, Mr. Müller. It's been a pleasure working with you all. Actually, we'd like to make you an offer. Our company is planning to expand operations into Latin America. We need someone with your profile to be our representative in the United States. The salary would be substantially higher than what you must earn here, and there would be opportunities to travel to Germany." Michael was surprised by the offer. In just 1 week, he had received 2 job offers that completely changed his life prospects. "It's a very generous proposal," he replied, "but I need time to think. I have responsibilities here that I can't just abandon lightly." "I understand perfectly. A family man must always consider such decisions carefully, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this are rare." Hans handed his business card to Michael and said goodbye with a firm handshake. That evening, Michael had dinner with Emily at a restaurant in the Marina district to celebrate the successful end of the week with the Germans. It was the first time in 3 years they had gone out to eat somewhere that wasn't for a birthday or special occasion. "Dad, you seem different lately," Emily observed as they waited for their main course. "Different how?" "Lighter. Like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders." Michael smiled. His daughter really was very perceptive. "I think you're right. Lately, I've been feeling more like myself." "And who is yourself?" The question caught Michael off guard. He had spent so much time being just Emily's dad or the widower who works at the hotel that he had almost forgotten who he was before all those labels. "I'm not sure I remember anymore," he admitted. "I remember," Emily said, smiling. "You're the smartest and kindest man I know. Someone who speaks 8 languages, but never makes anyone feel stupid. Someone who lost everything, but never lost his kindness. Someone who gave up his own dreams to make mine come true." Michael felt his eyes well up. When was the last time someone had described him so beautifully? "And now I want you to dream again too," Emily continued. "Not just for me, but for yourself." "My dreams now are all about you," Michael said. "Dad, I'm already 16. In 2 years, I'll be off to college and you'll be alone. I don't want the day to come when you no longer know who you are without me." His daughter's maturity always surprised Michael, but that remark left him genuinely impressed. "When did you get so wise, Anne?" he asked. "I learned from my dad," she replied, winking. That night, Michael lay awake thinking about Emily's words and the Germans' offer. For the first time in years, he had real choices for his future. The question was, which path should he choose? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next morning, Michael arrived at the hotel determined to talk to Victoria about the German offer. But before he could look for her, George intercepted him in the lobby. "Michael, I need to talk to you," George said with a serious expression. "What is it?" "It's about your new position. Some employees are upset." "Upset about what?" "Well, you jumped ahead of people who've been here longer. Barbara, for example, has worked at this hotel for 18 years and never got a promotion like yours." Michael sighed. He knew this conversation would come sooner or later. "George, I didn't ask for this promotion. Ms. Victoria offered it because she needed someone with my specific skills." "What skills?" "Speaking languages. Anyone can learn languages if they have time and money." "You're right," Michael agreed, surprising George. "Anyone can learn. I did because I needed to for my previous job. And now I'm using those skills to help the hotel. What exactly is the problem with that?" George was left speechless for a moment. He had expected Michael to defend himself or justify his actions, not to partially agree with him. "The problem is that it looks like favoritism," he muttered. "Favoritism would be if I got a promotion without being qualified for the job. Do you think I'm not qualified to translate and handle international guests?" "That's not it." "Then what's the real problem, George?" asked Michael, tired of the conversation. George hesitated, but finally spoke his mind. "The problem is you've always acted like you're better than us. From day one, you've had this superior attitude, like you're doing us a favor by working here." The accusation hit Michael like a slap. He had never realized that his attempt to keep his past discreet had been interpreted as arrogance. "George, if at any point I came across as arrogant or disrespectful, I sincerely apologize. It was never my intention. I've always just tried to be another employee doing my job." "Just another employee?" George repeated sarcastically. "That's exactly it. You were never just another employee, and we all knew it. The difference is now it's official." Michael realized arguing was pointless. George had formed an image of him that didn't match reality, and nothing he said would change that. "Look, George, I didn't come here to cause trouble for anyone. If my presence is causing this much discomfort, I can talk to Ms. Victoria about—" "No need." A woman's voice interrupted behind them. Both turned to see Victoria approaching, clearly annoyed. "George, I need to speak with you. Privately. Now." George turned red, realizing Victoria had heard at least part of the conversation. "Ms. Victoria, I was just—" "Now, George." The two walked away, leaving Michael alone in the lobby. He sank into one of the armchairs, emotionally drained. Maybe the German's offer really was the best option. Leaving this environment before the conflicts escalated. 15 minutes later, Victoria returned alone. "Michael, I'm sorry about what happened," she said, sitting beside him. "I spoke with George and made it clear that comments like those won't be tolerated. Ms. Victoria, maybe it's better if I go back to housekeeping. I don't want to cause trouble." "Absolutely not," Victoria said firmly. "Michael, there will always be people who resent others' success. That's their problem, not yours. You've earned this opportunity, and you won't give it up because of someone else's jealousy." Michael looked at Victoria, struck by her determination to defend him. "Why are you doing this for me?" he asked. "Because I believe in doing what's right. And the right thing is to recognize and value talent, no matter where it comes from." "What if I told you I got another job offer?" Victoria was silent for a moment. "You did?" "The Germans offered me a position, their representative in the United States. And you're considering it?" "I'm thinking about it," Victoria sighed. "Michael, I can't force you to stay. If it's a better opportunity for you and your daughter, you should take it. I just ask that you don't base your decision on a few petty comments." "It's not just that," Michael admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if staying here is selfish." "Selfish how?" "This hotel saved me when I needed it most, gave me a job when no one else would hire me. Wouldn't it be ungrateful to accept another offer as soon as things got better?" Victoria smiled. "Michael, gratitude doesn't mean settling forever for less than you're capable of. My grandfather gave you that job because you needed it, but I'm sure he'd be happy to know you've grown beyond it." Michael fell silent, processing Victoria's words. "Can I ask you a personal question?" he said. "Of course." "Why do you care so much about me? You haven't known me long and I'm just an employee." "You're not just anything," Victoria interrupted. "And I care because you remind me of my grandfather." "Your grandfather?" "He was also someone who always put others first, who sacrificed his own dreams for the sake of the family. When my parents died in an accident, he gave up so much to raise me. And he always told me his greatest joy was seeing me go further than he ever could." Michael understood. Victoria wasn't just helping an employee, she was honoring her grandfather's memory. "What's the deadline for me to respond to the Germans?" he asked. "They didn't give a specific date, but they said not to take too long." "Then I'll ask for a few days to decide. It's too important a choice to rush." "Of course. Take all the time you need." When Michael got home that night, he found Emily studying for a chemistry test. He told her about the German's offer, without mentioning the conflict with George. "Dad, that's amazing," she said, excited. "Are you going to accept?" "I don't know yet. It's a big change. But it's also a huge opportunity, right?" "Yes, it is." "Then why hesitate?" Michael smiled at the simplicity of the question. "Because sometimes the best opportunities come when we least expect them, and that can be scary." "Dad, can I give you some advice?" "Always. Stop being afraid to be happy. Mom wouldn't want to know you're holding yourself back because of her." Once again, Emily showed a wisdom that amazed Michael. She was right. Rebecca had always encouraged him to chase his dreams, and she certainly wouldn't approve of him limiting himself out of guilt or fear. "You're right," he admitted. "Your mother always told me not to waste my talents." "Then don't waste them. Whatever you decide, think about the future, not the past." That night, Michael made a decision. Not about the Germans' offer, but about how he would approach the situation. He would stop seeing himself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing himself as someone with choices and the power to make them. The next morning, he arrived at the hotel with a different attitude. He greeted all the staff normally, including George, and went straight to his office. He had work to do and wouldn't let interpersonal conflicts get in the way. Around 10 o'clock, he got a call from a French guest who was having trouble communicating with a doctor at a city hospital. Michael immediately offered to accompany him and serve as a translator. At the hospital, Michael spent 2 hours helping the Frenchman understand his diagnosis and treatment options. The man was traveling alone and was deeply grateful for the help. "Monsieur Anderson," the Frenchman said when they returned to the hotel, "you saved my trip. I don't know how to thank you." "It was my pleasure to help," Michael replied. "May I ask you something? How did someone with your education end up working at a hotel?" It was the same question Michael had asked himself 1,000 times, but this time he answered without hesitation. "Life sometimes takes us down unexpected paths. What matters isn't where you are, but what you do with the opportunities that come your way." The Frenchman smiled. "What a wise answer. You're a special person, Monsieur Anderson." When they arrived at the hotel, the Frenchman asked to speak with Victoria. He wanted to formally praise Michael's work and suggest the hotel should be proud to have such a capable employee. Victoria listened to the praise and then sought out Michael. "It seems you made quite an impression on Monsieur Dubois," she said. "I just did my job." "Michael, I want to ask you a direct question. Are you happy here?" "I am. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm doing something that has purpose beyond just paying the bills." "Then why are you still considering the Germans' offer?" Michael hesitated before answering. "Because I'm afraid this might be temporary, that I'll get used to this happiness and then something will happen to destroy it again." "Oh," said Victoria, understanding. "You're afraid to open yourself up to the possibility of being hurt again." "Something like that." "Michael, can I tell you something about my grandfather?" "Of course." "When my parents died, my grandfather was devastated. He had lost his only son and daughter-in-law in a stupid car accident. For a few months, he completely shut down. He didn't leave the house, didn't talk to anyone, just took care of me mechanically." Michael listened carefully, noticing parallels with his own experience. "One day, he told me something I've never forgotten. Victoria, the pain of losing someone we love never fully goes away. But if we let that pain stop us from living, we're wasting the gift those people gave us, our own lives." "He was right," murmured Michael. He was. And that's why he decided to pour all his energy into raising me and making the hotel a special place. Not to forget my parents, but to honor them by living fully. And you think that's what I should do? I think you should stop punishing yourself for being alive. Your wife loved you, didn't she? Would she want to know you're wasting your talents out of guilt? The question struck Michael straight in the heart. Rebecca had always been his biggest supporter. She'd be furious if she knew he was holding himself back in her name. "No," he admitted, "she'd be furious with me." "Then honor her memory by being everything you can be. Whatever your decision about the Germans' offer, make it based on what's best for you and Emily, not on fear or guilt." After that conversation, Michael felt lighter. He'd carried so much emotional weight for so long that he'd forgotten what it was like to feel free to make choices based on hope instead of fear. That afternoon, he received an unexpected call. It was Hans Müller, the leader of the German delegation. "Mr. Anderson, I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all, Mr. Müller. How can I help you?" "Actually, I'm calling to invite you to dinner tonight. There are a few people I'd like you to meet." "What kind of people?" "Potential business partners. People who might be interested in your services regardless of your decision about our offer." Michael was intrigued. What was Hans planning? Where would this dinner be? "At the Four Seasons Hotel Restaurant in Beverly Hills at 8 o'clock. "Can I bring my daughter?" Michael asked impulsively. "Of course. In fact, it would be nice to meet her." When Michael told Emily about the dinner, she got nervous. "Dad, I don't have anything fancy enough to wear to a place like that." "You look beautiful in anything," Michael said, "but if you want, we can stop by a store first." They left early, and Michael bought Emily a simple but elegant dress. Watching her get ready for dinner brought him painful but also sweet memories of doing similar things with Rebecca. The dinner at the Four Seasons was a surreal experience for both of them. Hans had invited 5 people, 2 German business owners, a Swiss investor, an Argentine tourism consultant, and a Dutch diplomat. Throughout the evening, Michael conversed in 4 different languages, discussing topics ranging from international economics to comparative literature. Emily watched in fascination, seeing a side of her father she knew but rarely witnessed. At the end of the night, Hans stood up to make a toast. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. As you could see, Mr. Anderson is exactly the kind of professional our region needs to facilitate business with Latin America. I hope you'll all consider possible collaborations with him." Everyone raised their glasses, and Michael felt both honored and pressured at the same time. It was clear that Hans was trying to create a network of opportunities for him, whether or not he accepted the original offer. On the way home, Emily was beaming. "Dad, it was amazing to see you like that. You spoke to those people as if you were their equal." "I am their equal, sweetheart. I've just been in different circumstances." "And will you accept the German's offer?" "I don't know yet. It's too big a decision to make quickly." "But are you happy about the opportunities coming your way?" Michael smiled. "You know what? I am. For the first time in a long while, I'm excited about the future." In the days that followed, Michael received 3 direct contacts from people he'd met at the dinner. The Swiss investor wanted to discuss the possibility of him working as a consultant for projects in the United States. The Canadian consultant offered a partnership to develop bilingual tourist itineraries, and the Dutch diplomat mentioned opportunities at the consulate. Suddenly, Michael found himself in the unusual position of having more opportunities than he could properly consider. Victoria noticed the change in him. "You seem like a different person lately," she remarked during one of their daily conversations. "I feel different. It's strange to realize I'm still capable of dreaming." "And what are your dreams now?" Michael thought for a moment. "I want Emily to have every opportunity I couldn't give her before. I want to use my skills to do something that matters, and I want to be happy again, without guilt." "Those are beautiful dreams, and achievable. I think they're already starting to come true." That Friday, Michael made his decision about the German's offer. He called Hans and scheduled a meeting for Monday. Over the weekend, he and Emily went to Miami Beach, something they hadn't done in months. They walked along the shore, talked about the future, and Michael felt a peace he hadn't known in years. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Emily said as they drank coconut water at a beach stand. "Of course. Do you still miss Mom?" The question caught Michael off guard. Emily rarely spoke directly about her mother. "Every day," he answered honestly. "But I've learned that missing someone doesn't mean we should stop living." "Do you think she'd approve of all these changes happening?" Michael smiled, looking out at the ocean. "I think she'd be scolding me for taking so long to accept that I deserve to be happy." "I think so too," Emily said, laughing. "And you? How do you feel about all these changes?" "Excited. Nervous but excited. It's like life is starting over for both of us." On Monday, Michael met Hans in the lobby of the Grand Harbor Hotel. His decision was made. "Mr. Muller, first I want to thank you for the opportunity and for your trust," Michael began. "I imagine you've made your decision." "I have, and I've decided to decline the offer." Hans looked surprised. "May I ask why?" "If it's a matter of salary—" "It's not about money," Michael interrupted. "It's about purpose. I realized I don't just want a better job. I want to build something here, in the United States, with the people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Hans nodded in understanding. "I respect your decision, but the offer remains open if you change your mind." "Thank you, and I hope we can still maintain a business partnership. I believe I can help your company from here as an independent consultant." "That would be excellent. In fact, this might be even better than our original proposal." After Hans left, Michael sought out Victoria to share his decision. "I have a proposal for you," he said. "I'm listening. I want to expand my work here at the hotel. Beyond my current duties, I'd like to develop a language training program for staff, establish partnerships with consulates to facilitate visits from official delegations, and maybe even organize international cultural events." Victoria fell silent for a moment, processing the proposal. "You're talking about creating an entire department," she said. "I am, and I believe this could set our hotel apart from the competition and significantly boost our revenue from international guests." "And you do all this while keeping the same salary?" "At first, yes. Once we prove it works, we can discuss adjustments." Victoria smiled. "Michael, you're crazy, but it's the kind of crazy my grandfather would have approved of. Let's try it." And so, Michael Anderson embarked on a new chapter of his life. In the following months, he developed an English program for staff that became a model for other hotels. He organized 5 international cultural events that brought national visibility to the hotel, and he established partnerships with 3 consulates, resulting in lucrative contracts for hosting official delegations. Emily passed her entrance exam for NYU's medical school with one of the highest scores. On results day, she called Michael in the middle of his shift, crying with joy. "Dad, I made it! I got first place!" Michael rushed out of his office and ran down to the lobby, where he shouted with happiness in front of all the guests and staff. Margaret cried with him, and even George came to congratulate him with a genuine smile. "I'm proud of you, Michael," George said, "and I'm sorry for the comments I made before. You've earned every opportunity you've gotten." The apology meant a lot to Michael. He learned that sometimes people need time to process change, and that holding on to resentment only hurts the one who carries it. Victoria decided to throw a party at the hotel to celebrate Emily's success and the achievements of the new international department. It was a special evening, with staff, guests, and many of the professional contacts Michael had made over the past few months. During the party, Victoria gave a speech that moved everyone. "When my grandfather founded this hotel, he always said a business is made of people, not buildings or equipment. Today, seeing what Michael has accomplished here, I understand exactly what he meant. Michael didn't just bring his talents to our hotel, he brought his humanity, his dedication, and his ability to inspire others to be better." The applause was warm and long. Michael felt truly recognized and valued, but the most special moment of the night came when Emily stood up to speak. "I want to thank everyone who supported my dad these past years. You might not know this, but 3 years ago, when he started working here, he was emotionally broken. This hotel and the people in it helped him rebuild, and now he's giving back that help tenfold." She paused, visibly emotional. "Dad, for the longest time, I worried if you were happy. Today, seeing you shine the way I always knew you could, I'm sure you are. And that makes me happier than any college acceptance ever could." Michael stepped onto the makeshift stage and hugged his daughter as everyone applauded. "Emily," he said into the microphone, "you are my greatest achievement. And now together we'll achieve everything we've dreamed of." 3 months later, Michael received an unexpected invitation. NYU wanted to offer you a position as a visiting professor in the linguistics department, teaching a course on intercultural communication in the tourism sector. "It's like everything is falling into place," Emily remarked when he told her about the invitation. "It's no coincidence," Michael replied. It's the result of not being afraid to show who we really are. Will you accept? I'll talk to Victoria. If we can work out the schedules, it would be an incredible experience. Not only did Victoria approve the idea, but she also offered to adjust Michael's shifts so he could teach twice a week at the university. Michael, you deserve to return to academia, and your hands-on experience at the hotel will only enrich your classes. On his first day teaching at NYU, Michael felt like he was coming home after a long journey. Seeing the curiosity in the students' eyes, discussing complex theories, guiding research, it all reminded him why he had chosen to be a professor in the first place. After class, several students approached him with questions and comments. One student named Jennifer asked, "Professor, how did you manage to combine academic knowledge with practical work so effectively?" Michael smiled, remembering when he couldn't imagine his academic expertise having real-world applications outside the university. "I learned that knowledge without application is just information, and application without reflection is just repetition. It's the combination of the two that creates wisdom." "And how did you discover that?" "Through hardships," Michael answered honestly. "Sometimes we need to step out of our comfort zone to discover what we're truly capable of." In the following months, Michael's life settled into a routine he had never imagined possible. 3 days a week at the hotel, developing international projects and training staff. 2 days at the university, teaching and guiding research, and all his free time dedicated to Emily and his own personal growth. He joined a book club, resumed writing. He had started a book on intercultural communication, and even enrolled in an Italian cooking class, something he'd always wanted to do but never had the courage to try. One Sunday afternoon, as he prepared a risotto he'd learned in class, Emily was at the library studying for her first college exams. Michael caught himself humming a tune Rebecca used to sing in the kitchen. For a moment, he felt a pang of sadness, but it was quickly replaced by gratitude. Gratitude for having loved such a special woman, for having such a wonderful daughter, and for finding his way back to his true self. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Victoria. "Michael, sorry to bother you on your day off, but I got an interesting call." "What's it about?" "The Department of Tourism. They want to talk to you about a national project to train tour guides in foreign languages." Michael nearly dropped the spoon he was holding. "A national project? It seems your work here at the hotel has caught the attention of some important people. They want you to develop a program that can be implemented in tourist cities across the country. That's impressive, and you deserve every opportunity coming your way. What do you think?" "I think I'll hear them out, but anything I do will always be in partnership with the hotel. You're my foundation." "Michael, you don't owe us anything." "It's not obligation," he interrupted. "It's choice. This place gave me back my life. Now I want to give back by helping make it even better." 2 weeks later, Michael met with representatives from the Department of Tourism in Washington, D.C. The proposal was even bigger than he had imagined, developing a national language and cultural training program for tourism professionals, which would be implemented in 20 American cities over 2 years. "Professor Anderson," said the project coordinator, an elegant woman named Dr. Catherine Williams, "your work at the Grand Harbor Hotel has become a success story. We want to replicate that experience on a national scale." "It's an ambitious project," Michael replied, "and it would have to be adapted to the specifics of each region." "Exactly. That's why we need someone with your practical experience and academic knowledge, someone who understands both the theory and the application." Michael spent the day in meetings, learning the details of the project and discussing possibilities. In the end, he was invited to oversee the entire program, with the freedom to assemble his own team and establish methodologies. "I need a few days to think," he said. "It's an incredible opportunity, but it would completely change my current life. We understand perfectly, but we hope you'll accept. The United States needs professionals like you." On the flight back to New York, Michael reflected on how much his life had changed in less than a year. From an invisible janitor to the potential director of a national project. It was almost surreal. When he got home, he found Emily studying anatomy at the kitchen table. "How was the trip, Dad?" Michael shared every detail of the meeting and saw his daughter's eyes light up with pride. "Dad, you have to accept. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. But it would mean traveling a lot, being away from you." "Dad, I'm already 17, and in a few months I'll be so busy with college that I'll barely have time for you," she said, laughing. "You can't pass up a chance like this because of me." "It wouldn't be because of you. It'd be because I like the life we've built here. And you'll keep liking it, but now you can build something even bigger. Dad, you have the chance to impact American tourism as a whole. How can you say no?" Michael smiled, impressed once again by his daughter's maturity. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from a very good teacher," she replied, winking. That night, Michael called Victoria and told her about the proposal. "Michael, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," she said immediately. "You should take it. But what about the hotel and our projects here? The hotel will still be here, and so will our projects. In fact, having you oversee a national program will only add more value to our work here." "Are you sure?" "I am. Michael, when my grandfather left me this hotel, he told me something I've never forgotten. Victoria, the success of a place isn't just measured by what it can maintain, but also by what it can create. You were created here, but now you're ready to create other things in other places. Thank you, Victoria, for everything. Thank you for teaching me that sometimes the most valuable people are right in front of us. We just need the eyes to see them." The next day, Michael called Washington, D.C. and accepted the proposal. It would be a new chapter in his life, but one built on the solid foundation of what he had learned and achieved over the past year. The news of his appointment spread quickly. Margaret cried with emotion. Other staff members came to congratulate him, and even some guests he had helped sent messages of praise. George, who had become a close friend in recent months, made an observation that touched Michael deeply. "You know, Michael, when you first got here, I thought you were just another arrogant guy trying to act humble. It took me a while to realize you weren't faking humility. You really believed you didn't deserve more than what you had. And now? Now I see a man who's learned to value his own talents without losing his humility. That's a rare combination." The farewell party, which wasn't really a farewell, since Michael would remain connected to the hotel as a consultant, was deeply moving. Victoria gave a speech that perfectly captured his journey. Michael Anderson Wright came here as a man who had lost everything. He leaves as a man who found far more than he had lost. He taught us that starting over isn't about going back to who we were before. It's about discovering who we can become. When Michael stepped up to speak, he looked around at all the people he had learned to love and respect. "A year ago, I was here, wiping this very same floor. Not that there was anything wrong with that job. I still believe any honest work has dignity. But there was something wrong with me. I had stopped believing I deserved more." He paused, seeing Emily in the front row beaming with pride. "This place taught me that our identity isn't in what we do, but in how we do it. It taught me that hidden talents serve no one, and it taught me that starting over isn't a defeat. It's a chance to be better than we were before." The applause was long and heartfelt. Many were visibly moved. "And now, I'll take everything I've learned here to help other professionals in American tourism discover and develop their own talents. Because I believe when each person shines in their field, the whole country grows stronger." At the end of the party, Victoria handed Michael a plaque. "Michael Anderson Wright, the man who taught us it's never too late to start over. I want you to hang this in your new office in Washington, D.C., she said, so you never forget where you came from and the people who believed in you." Michael held the plaque with trembling hands, too emotional to speak. 3 months later, Michael was in his new office at the Department of Tourism, leading a team of 15 in developing the national program. The work was challenging and rewarding, letting him use all his academic and practical experience. Emily visited him during his first week, impressed by the setup and the team. "Dad, it's amazing to see you here. You look like you're exactly where you belong." "You know what?" Michael said, gazing out his office window at the Capitol building. "I feel that way too. For the first time since your mother passed, I feel like I'm in the right place doing the right thing. Mom would be proud. I think she would. And mad too that it took me so long to accept I deserved to be happy. The program officially launched 6 months later, attended by the Secretary of Tourism and representatives from all participating cities. Michael gave the opening speech to an audience of over 500. American tourism has immense potential, he said, but that potential can only be realized if we invest in the people who make tourism happen. Every waiter, every receptionist, every tour guide is an ambassador for our country, and ambassadors must be prepared to represent the best of what we have. The program became a national success, featured in numerous reports and even documentaries about innovation in American tourism. Michael was invited to speak at international conferences and write academic articles on his methodologies. But despite all his professional success, the moments he cherished most were still the simple ones. Dinners with Emily when he was in New York, conversations with Victoria about the hotel's new projects, and the letters he received from professionals who had attended his training. One letter from a tour guide in New Orleans named Sarah touched him deeply. Professor Michael, I wanted to thank you for everything I learned in your course. Before, I was ashamed of my accent when speaking English with tourists. Now I understand that my accent is part of my American identity and that tourists love it. You taught me that we don't need to hide to please others. We need to be authentic and excellent at the same time. Reading that letter, Michael remembered his own journey, how he had tried to hide, downplay his talents, accept less than he deserved, and how he had learned that authenticity and excellence aren't opposites, they're partners. One Friday afternoon, 2 years after accepting the position at the Department of Tourism, Michael received an unexpected call. It was Hans Müller, the German businessman. Mr. Anderson, what a pleasure to speak with you again. I've been following your work in the United States. Impressive. Thank you, Hans. How are things in Germany? Very well. Actually, I'm calling because our company is expanding operations to other countries in Latin America, and we'd like to hire you as a consultant, but this time for a much bigger project. Michael smiled, remembering when he had turned down the first offer out of fear of leaving his comfort zone. I'm listening. We want you to develop an intercultural training program for European entrepreneurs looking to invest in Latin America. It would be a regional project involving the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Interesting. How would it work? You'd keep your base in the United States, but travel to all 4 countries, establishing local partnerships and adapting the program for each culture. What do you think? Michael thought quickly. This was exactly the kind of challenge that excited him now. Send me a detailed proposal. I'll review it carefully. After hanging up, Michael gazed out the window, reflecting on how opportunities appeared when a person was ready to receive them. 2 years ago, he was cleaning bathrooms. Now European entrepreneurs wanted to hire him for international projects. The difference wasn't in external circumstances, but in how he saw himself. When he stopped seeing himself as a victim and started seeing himself as the protagonist of his own story, everything changed. That evening, having dinner with Emily at a restaurant in Washington, D.C., she had come to visit him for the weekend, Michael told her about the German proposal. "Dad, you never stop," she said, laughing. "Pretty soon you'll be coordinating programs on every continent. And you, how's college?" "Challenging but wonderful. Last week, my anatomy professor told me I have potential for surgery. Can you believe it? Me, who was always afraid of blood." Michael smiled, seeing so much of Rebecca in his daughter's determination. "Your mother always said you'd be a doctor." Seems she was right. She was right about a lot of things, including you. "How so?" "Dad, do you remember that last conversation we had with her at the hospital?" Michael swallowed hard. Those memories were still painful. "I remember. She told me something I never shared with you. She said she wasn't worried about me because she knew you'd teach me everything I needed to know about being strong, but she was worried about you." "Why?" "Because she knew you'd try to carry the world on your shoulders and forget that you deserved to be happy too. She made me promise that one day when you were ready, I'd remind you that she didn't leave you so you could punish yourself. She left you so you could live." Michael felt tears welling in his eyes. Rebecca had always been wiser than him. And when did you think I was ready to hear that? When you stopped hiding behind the mop and started showing who you really were. When you accepted Ms. Victoria's promotion. That's when I knew you were ready to live again, not just survive. Michael reached out and held Emily's hand. Thank you for keeping the promise you made to your mother. And thank you for being patient with me during those hard years. Dad, you did your best with the tools you had at the time. And look where we are now, me studying medicine, you impacting American tourism. I think we're honoring Mom's memory well. We really are, agreed Michael, feeling a deep sense of peace. By the end of 2025, Michael was invited to give a TEDx talk on new beginnings and rediscovery. The talk, held at Lincoln Center, was sold out. 4 years ago, he began, I was mopping the floors of a 5-star hotel. There was nothing wrong with that job, but there was something wrong with me. I had forgotten who I was beyond the circumstances I was living in. He shared his full story. The loss of Rebecca, the years of struggle, the forced humility, and finally, the rediscovery of his talents and ambitions. A new beginning isn't about going back to who we were before. It's about discovering who we can become with the wisdom we've gained from hardship. It's about using our scars as maps to help others walking the same path. The audience was visibly moved. Many related to his story of overcoming and reinvention. Today, I oversee national tourism training programs, teach at the university, and work on international projects. But what I'm most proud of isn't the titles or achievements. It's learning that it's never too late to honor our talents, and that true humility isn't about shrinking ourselves. It's about recognizing our worth without losing compassion for others. The applause was warm and long. Several people in the audience stood, visibly touched by his message. At the reception afterward, Michael was approached by dozens who wanted to share their own stories of new beginnings. One woman, around 70, particularly caught his attention. Professor Anderson, she said, I'm Elizabeth Johnson, 72 years old, and I just finished my first degree. When I heard your story, I knew I wasn't crazy, that it's never too late to discover who we really are. What did you study? Michael asked, impressed. Psychology. I always wanted to help people, but when I was young, women didn't go to college. Now, I want to open a practice to help seniors facing identity crises. That's a wonderful idea, and much needed. Your story gave me the courage to believe I could start a new career at 72. Michael was deeply moved. His personal journey was inspiring others to find their own paths to renewal. Later that night, back home, Michael got a call from Victoria. Michael, I watched your talk online. It was beautiful. Thank you. It was an incredible experience. I want to tell you something. After you left the hotel, we implemented a new policy. Every employee now has an annual interview to share talents or knowledge they're not using in their current role. We've already discovered 2 more employees with untapped potential. What a wonderful initiative. We learned from you that sometimes the most valuable people are right in front of us. We just need the eyes to see and the ears to hear. After hanging up, Michael sat on his balcony in Washington, D.C., watching the city lights. In 4 years, his life had completely transformed. But the most important change wasn't external, it was internal. He had learned the difference between humility and self-deprecation, between gratitude and resignation, between accepting circumstances and letting them diminish him. His phone rang again. It was Emily. Dad, I saw your talk on YouTube. I cried buckets. From sadness. From pride. Dad, you're the bravest man I know. Brave? Me, who spent 3 years trying to hide. Bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about moving forward despite the fear. You lost everything, were devastated, but you never stopped being a present father to me and a professional of integrity. And when opportunities arose, you had the courage to believe you deserved them. Michael smiled, once again impressed by his daughter's wisdom. Emily, can I tell you a secret? Of course. The person who taught me the most about courage was you, a 13-year-old girl who lost her mother but never stopped believing in her father, who supported me when I couldn't support myself, who reminded me who I was when I had forgotten. Dad, we saved each other. That's true, and now we're ready to help others save themselves too. At the end of 2025, Michael was honored by the Department of Tourism for his contributions to the industry. The program he had created was being implemented in 30 cities and had trained over 5,000 professionals. During the ceremony, the secretary gave an emotional speech. Professor Michael Anderson Wright taught us that true tourism isn't just about showcasing our natural beauty, but about revealing the beauty of our people. And the beauty of our people lies in their ability to overcome adversity, to reinvent themselves, and to turn challenges into opportunities. The ceremony was broadcast nationally, and Michael received hundreds of messages from people inspired by his story. One message in particular moved him deeply. It was from a 45-year-old man named Robert from Boston. Professor Michael, I've been a widower for 2 years and was working as a hotel doorman because I couldn't teach anymore. I have a degree in history. Your story gave me the courage to approach the manager and offer my knowledge to create historical tours for guests. Today I oversee a cultural tourism program that's thriving. Thank you for showing me that starting over isn't giving up, it's evolving. Reading that message, Michael realized his journey had become bigger than himself. It was no longer just about his personal triumph, but about inspiring others to find their own paths to rebirth. In January 2026, exactly 4 years after Victoria discovered he spoke Dutch, Michael was promoted to National Director of Tourism Training, becoming responsible for educational programs across the country. On the day of his inauguration, Emily, now in her 3rd year of medical school, made sure to be there. Victoria also came from New York, along with several hotel staff who had become close friends. Dad, Emily said during the celebration dinner, remember when you told me your dreams were all about me now? I do. I think it's time for you to dream beyond me too. You deserve dreams of your own as big as your potential. Michael looked at his daughter, now a confident and determined young woman, and felt a pride that surpassed any professional achievement. You know what my biggest dream is now, he said. What? That 10 years from now, when you're a practicing doctor, you'll look back and be proud not just of what you accomplished, but of how you accomplished it. With integrity, humility, and generosity, exactly the way your mother taught me. And what's your dream for yourself? Michael thought for a moment. To keep learning, to keep growing, and to keep helping people discover it's never too late to reinvent yourself. Because I've learned that life isn't about going back to who we were before hardship. It's about becoming someone better because of it. Victoria, who had been listening, raised her glass for a toast. To Michael Anderson Wright, she said, who taught us that true success isn't about never falling, but about always rising stronger than before. Everyone raised their glasses, and Michael felt a deep gratitude for every person present, every experience lived, and every lesson learned along the way. That night, alone in his apartment, Michael wrote in his journal. He had resumed the habit of writing during his journey of personal rediscovery. Today marks 4 years since Victoria discovered I spoke Dutch. It feels like a lifetime ago, yet at the same time it seems like yesterday. I've learned that happy endings aren't destinations, they're journeys. It's not about reaching a specific place, but about becoming the person you always had the potential to be. Rebecca was right when she said hidden talents eventually reveal themselves. But I've discovered they only appear when we stop being afraid to shine. When we understand that honoring our gifts isn't arrogance, it's responsibility. Emily is growing into the extraordinary woman I always knew she'd become. I'm finally living the life I always had the potential to live. And together, we're honoring Rebecca's memory, not with tears of sorrow, but with smiles of gratitude for all she taught us about love, perseverance, and hope. Tomorrow begins a new chapter in my career, with national responsibilities and international dreams. But I know no matter where the next chapters take me, I'll never forget the lessons learned on the marble floors of the Grand Harbour Hotel. That dignity isn't in what we do, but how we do it. That humility isn't about diminishing ourselves, but recognizing our place in the world with gratitude. And that it's never, ever too late to start again. End of story. Tell us what you thought of this moving story of overcoming challenges and self-discovery. Michael managed to turn his pain into purpose and his hidden talents into real opportunities. Have you ever experienced a similar situation or know someone who went through a journey of starting over? Share your heartfelt reflections on this path of personal and professional rebirth in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us in yet another inspiring story.